and gentlemen, boys and girls, tankers of all ages, Sir Harry here again with another episode of the Unlovables, the series about the tanks that everybody hates, the tanks that you really don't want to play, the tanks that you'll burn free XP just to be able to skip so you can get to the next tier in the tech tree. And today we're looking at the Type 95 Heavy, the Tier 4 Japanese heavy tank. And calling this thing a heavy tank is really being pretty darn generous. It really lacks the attributes you want from a heavy tank, that being, of course, armor. It doesn't have any. We'll look at that in a second. The gun's not great. The mobility's not great. It's just all around a pretty terrible tank. And certainly a lot of people I know probably have spent a lot of free XP just whipping past this thing to get to the OI Experimental, which is probably the exact opposite. At Tier 5, if you're top tier anyway, it's pretty overpowered. It's a monster. You can get out in front of your team and take shots, soak up damage, and lead your team to victory. You absolutely cannot do this in the Type 95 Heavy. You want to make sure you're playing peeky pokey, staying undercover when you're not shooting, and you really want to aim your shots because this gun is also not the best. So we'll take a quick look at some of the features, and then we'll get into some gameplay and see if I can manage to score an ace tanker in this bad boy. Looking quickly at the two guns available on the Type 95 Heavy, the 7cm, the first gun, rate of fire is the same for both, 18.2 rounds a minute, which isn't bad, but look at that penetration. We've got 30 mils on the 7cm. It goes way up to 70 mils on the 7.5, the Tier 4 gun. Damage goes up slightly from 100 to 110. Dispersion gets ever so slightly better from 0.42 to 0.4, but 0.4 is still absolutely abysmal. Aiming time not bad, 2.3, but even if you aim with that dispersion, no guarantees you're going to hit anything. So now let's move on to the armor of the Type 95 Heavy. There you go. That's about the armor. There you go. Thank you to Kleenex for that. 35 millimeters front, even with a bit of sloping and stuff. 30 millimeters on the front of that dummy turret. 30 millimeters on the front of the main turret. 80 around the gun mantlet, but the gun mantlet is pretty small. It's not hard to hit the turret. And only 12 on that little cupola on top. So high explosive rounds, even from low tier tanks, could do some damage. 25 side and of the turret, and as you move down, it goes to 12 millimeters on the side of the hull. That little sort of triangular piece there, very weak. 30 millimeters on the main part of the hull, 25 on the side of that little turret, 28 millimeters of effective armor with that spacing, and the tracks account for 40. So let's get into some gameplay, see if we can manage to get an ace tanker. So for our first battle, we're in a Tier 5 match on Highway. We're in the North Spawn. I actually much prefer the North Spawn on this map. And we can see the enemy team breakdown there. There's a bunch of enemy tanks I'm definitely going to be worried about. They've got a pair of Panzer III-4s, which are those really, really nice, fast-moving, relatively fast-firing German medium tanks. The Panzer IV-H, if he's mounting the derp gun, obviously can be lobbing high explosive at me and can actually one-shot me, so I'm worried about him. And the enemy team has one Tier 5 heavy tank. We have no Tier 5 heavy tanks. And of course, you know on this map, the heavies tend to gravitate towards the city, so pretty much guaranteed their KV-1's going to be heading there. And you can see our team is trying to respond. A mix of mediums and lights and tank destroyers are all making their way down to the city. And our T-67 has very thankfully taken up an advanced spotting position up there in the northwest corner. This map is absolutely dependent on winning the one line. If you lose the one line, you're basically toast no matter which spawn you're in. You have to have enough forces up there to be able to either at least counter any enemy push and ideally be able to push on into the enemy cap. So now you can see a whole bunch of enemy tanks have been spotted up there. The Covenanters there. I've got high explosive loaded. We talked about the 7.5 gun on this tank. One good thing about this gun, actually, especially if you're shooting at lower tier tanks, the high explosive rounds are actually pretty devastating. Again, if you're pumping rounds into Tier 3, Tier 4 tanks, you can do a lot of damage really quickly. Here, in fact, though, of course, I was shooting high explosive at Tier 5 and 4 tanks. The Covenanter, I was a bit unlucky rather, I think, not to get a better damage roll on him. I obviously didn't pen him. The Panzer IV-H I wasn't expecting to kill with high explosive. I did switch to AP, and even after he disappeared, of course, you keep putting rounds at that location in the hopes that the enemy might still be there. So here's one of the Panzer III-4s, very long range, and I get a very lucky armor-piercing shot into his flank, and there's a cruiser, little cruiser, a couple of shots, and again, very lucky to penetrate. He's not moving. He should be realizing where the shots are coming from and start moving laterally across my front, especially the shell velocity on this gun is so slow. Against a moving target at that range, it would be almost impossible. It would be very lucky if you were able to pen. So now my team is actually reinforcing the west flank there. You can see the Covenanters popped up again. I put one hasty shot at him. I do miss him. And here's a flak bus. Now, I've still got AP loaded. I obviously didn't notice this because you absolutely want to be shooting high explosive at the flank of the flak bus, the Death Toaster there, because it's got very weak side armor. It's a big, flat, broadside target like that, And I probably could have two-shotted him if I'd had high explosive loaded and managed to land a couple of shots. So things are looking pretty good on the west side of this map, but down in the city, it's a bit dodgy at this point. Their KV-1 still down there, and you can see we really don't have a lot of tanks there. The tanks we do have, obviously the M4 is pretty darn good. The Type T-34 is not bad. But with that T-28, a good Tier 4 medium tank, and if he's got the top gun, that's actually pretty quick firing and does a lot of alpha for its tier. And the KV-1, of course, all bets are off. Who knows which gun he has. If he has the derp and he lands some shots, he could definitely take out some of our tanks pretty quickly. So now we're advancing down the west flank. The Panzer IV-H in our team, you can see, is kind of leading the charge. There's the other flak bus. I still have AP loaded. I do get 2 shots into him. I'm very lucky there, actually, to get those 2 shots. And no, he gets taken out before I can land a killing blow. And now you can see there's a Panzer II down there. And so, of course, light tank drivers never do this. Never camp your base. If you're bottom tier and you're really not confident about your ability to do any damage or to contribute to the battle, at least get out somewhere where you can do some spotting, find a bush, and just sit there. Just do passive spotting. Camping your base in a light tank is probably the worst thing you can do for your team. It definitely doesn't do anything, and by the time the enemy gets to your cap, you really don't have the armor and you don't have the firepower to be able to defend yourself effectively in most cases. So, good on our team. While down in the east there, they've managed to clear out the town for the most part. And the game is now pretty much in wrap-up stage. There's a TD and an artillery back by their base. The Su-85B is back there, and if you saw my video on the Su-85B, you know it's a very, very dangerous tank destroyer, even though it's only Tier 4. Relatively fast-firing gun with a relatively high amount of alpha damage for its tier. But if you're just going to sit behind a building in your cap like that, you're not going to get back. Use some distance, put some distance between you and the enemy, and snipe at them. Then yeah, you're going to get picked apart. You'll get a shot into them maybe, but then you don't have a turret. They'll come around the building, and you'll get killed. And wow, what a lucky on-the-move high-explosive shot that was on the Lorraine artillery there to wrap up the game. So not bad, first class, not an ace tanker. I know, I'm sorry. 13,000 credits. I made there, and I got the fire for effect and some other medals there. Fighter for 4 kills, 1,071 damage, 667 base XP. Not bad, not terrible. 20 shots fired, 15 hit, and a lot of those were from pretty long range. So 950 of my 1,071 damage were from a long way away. I was pretty impressed with that. So if you aim the gun on the Type 95, you can actually do a pretty good job. So on to our second battle, and I forgot to mention earlier, the Type 95 Heavy gets preferential matchmaking. You will never ever see a Tier 6 tank in this thing, which of course is for the best, because this, again, could not deal with a Tier 6 tank in any real way. Certainly a Tier 6 Heavy, like a T-150 or an M6, there's no point even trying against something like that. So just make sure you don't go into a failed platoon with a friend in a Tier 5 tank in one of these, because you'll very quickly get in over your head in a Tier 6 battle. So we're in Tier 5 battle. We're on Arctic region. Again, we're on a team with no top tier heavy tanks, and in this case the enemy has 3. They've got a Churchill 3, a KV-1, and a T-14, that Tier 5 premium American tank, which has awesome armor, but a very weak little gun. So, but still, we'd have trouble penning it. Even with APCR, I think we'd have trouble in this. So we have an obligation, well, certainly the top tier mediums have an obligation to our team to probably come down to the south to try to rebuff that expected onslaught of top tier heavy tanks. You can see here the T-46 pops his head over doing some spotting. I just miss him on the move. And he gets killed before I can get my second shot off, but I decide to shoot it anyway, just, I guess, a bit of target practice for my team. Our Chinu, unfortunately, looks like he got tracked in the open there and gets taken out from the Stug 3G, and it looks like that Stug 3 is probably up on that little TD shelf up in the D8 area, because the Chinu was broadside onto him and helpless sitting there in the open like that. And the Stug 3 has such a high rate of fire. Certainly wouldn't take him long to take care of that Tier 5 Japanese medium tank. So now things are getting real. Holy cow, there's the KV-1. We get a really lucky tracking shot into him with high explosive. He uses his repair kit, and it looks like he probably has the derp gun. So I'm going to have to be very, very cautious of this KV-1, because he could one-shot me if he gets a penetrating shot through my armor. I put another HE at him. It just fizzles on his front there. And so now I'm backing off. So really at this point, all I'm doing is just playing the role of kind of harasser and spotter for my team. I'm obviously not going to sit out in the open. I'm going to wait and see if the enemy tanks are pointing at my friends, and if they are, then I'll come out and try to get a shot. So that's actually a pretty good high explosive there. 94. I aim for the driver's hatch there, so bit of a weak spot on the KV4 and KV1 rather. Yeah, definitely wouldn't be penning the front of a KV4. And there's another one, 110, doing some great work there with the high explosive. But the Matilda's caught on to what I'm doing, and it started raining fast-firing shots down on me there. And so I switched to heat, and I get a shot right through the front of the Matilda hull. But oh my goodness, there's the KV, and yeah, he shaves off half my hit points pretty much right there. So the Matilda's still there. I'm just playing pokey, in and out, and just enough to get my gun to bear on the Matilda. And then certainly as soon as I'm able to get a shot off, I back off immediately. But look at that. Our Bishop takes out the Matilda. I took off probably 2/3 of his hit points there. And oh my goodness, there's an M7. Tier 5 American medium tank. Plays more like a light, doesn't have good armor. Oh, and thank you. Yeah, one of our tanks just put a round into my backside there. Like I don't have enough hit points already. And M7 foolishly pushes around the corner. Again, doesn't have really good armor, especially on the sides, and I do pen him with a high explosive shot there and take him out. So yeah, we've sort of repelled the enemy onslaught here in the south, and now it's me and a Panzer IV, and a few of my friends are going to be pushing up to probably push towards the enemy base now, because you can see in the north, the enemy's actually brought a lot of forces north. They got the Church 3 there, and our T-34 is trying to, he's not going to last long, and in fact, you can see there, he gets taken out, and now there's an enemy T-34 and a Churchill 3 and a T-14 all pushing down from the north. This strategy actually can work if you've got relatively quick heavy tanks, and you and they and their mediums and light tanks all kind of push around to the north. You can really overwhelm that flank pretty quickly, get on the cap, and then set up kind of a screening force to the east. But in this case, the Churchill 3 is painfully slow, and the T-14 is not particularly quick either. So they're going to get bogged down a bit here. And our S-35CA, the French TD, the bathtub, is going to have an absolutely heroic game here. You can see he's just tucked around cover there to the west of that mountain, and he's going to single-handedly pretty much repel this attack with a bit of help from our Bishop, who also has a great game. So in the northeast here, we're pretty much in cleanup mode. We're watching, of course, very concerned about what's happening closer to our spawn, but we can certainly clean up the enemies that are left up around their cap and just to the west of it, and at least buy some time for our friends down around the cap. I'm too slow. I wouldn't be able to get back. If the enemy is able to overwhelm our S-35 and get onto our cap, I wouldn't be able to get back in time, but certainly a few of our other friends would. And you can see we've got a T-34 of our teams up on that little TD ramp there just northeast of our spawn. Way too late in the game to be sitting up there. I mean, I know there were a few enemy tanks to take pokes at, but certainly not helping the team there. As a pretty fast medium with a pretty good gun, that T-34 certainly should have been down helping out earlier. But now he finally gets the message, and he comes down off the ramp, and it looks like he's going to try to help out with that T-14. So the S-35, yeah, unfortunately gets taken out. He had a great game, and again, I think he pretty much single-handedly saved our cap with a bit of help from the Bishop. And look, there's the M8 on his side, very fast little tank, and on rough terrain like this, very easy to flip. And I feel bad. I'm sorry, M8. That was kicking someone when they're down, but it's a kill, and there's the game, 15-10. So, yeah, you know what? Another first class, no waste tanker, fire for effect. Did okay. You know what? I think that was a good battle to show, only because even in the Type 95 Heavy, you can go up against higher tier tanks like a KV-1 or an M7, and if you use the terrain wisely and pick your shots, you actually can have a pretty good result. So on to our last replay now, and it's a Tier 4 battle on mines. Team composition is actually pretty even. Both sides have a Lee, both sides have a Matilda, both sides have an M8A1. The big difference is that we have a Panzer B2 and myself as top tier heavies, and the enemy team has two Type 95s. So depending on how they play, this could be very interesting. The Panzer B2, for those of you not familiar with it, is of course replicating like a captured French B1 tank that the Germans put into service. The great thing about this little Tier 4 premium is that it only sees Tier 4 battles. You are always top tier. If you didn't know that, and you want to go out and practice and maybe club some seals, that is probably one of the best tanks to do it in, because you're always top tier. So we look at the enemy team so far as we know, that they've got a Stewart up onto the hill already. So we lost the race for the hill, and now they're even getting a TD up there. So absolutely fail there as far as our light fast tanks. They didn't get up there in time. And the enemy has a lot of tanks jammed into the middle here. You can see the Lees there, the Type 95s are there, the Lux is there, the M8's there. And for me, that Lux is probably one of the most important targets because it, as you know, is a very fast, devastating little light tank, a tier 4. The M8 is also a very high priority target, so much so that I make the decision to poke out just to get one high explosive shot into him. And I didn't think I'd one-shot him, but I wanted to do a lot of damage to him. He was foolish enough to chase me out, and I actually managed to get the kill shot. So now I'm going to use this gap in the rocks here to try to get some more high explosive rounds downrange. I do put one into the Covenanter there, but unfortunately I'm unable to kill him. I just do a little bit of damage. The downside, of course, because the Lux is on the other side of that rock, is he's proximity spotting me, so the enemy team to the north there know exactly where I am at all times. And now their Stewart decides he wants to put some pressure on me. He gets 2 shots into me, takes my engine out. I do manage to get one into him, and I decide to just focus on that position in case he pops out again. You noticed I did pull a little closer to the rock only because the enemy does have an artillery, and I wanted to try to use that rock as a bit of arty cover. Although I probably should be turned sideways, not with my butt sticking out like that. So this position is it's okay. I'm safe, but I'm really not able to do much. See if we can get some shots on the Lux. No, and both the enemy heavies to the north there are pulled far enough back around the rock that I'm safe to make a dash up for the hill. And yeah, let's kill that Stewart. He misses me, and one shot, penetrating high explosive round, takes him out. So now, time to look at the Lux. And you can see our Panzer B1's making a run at him. He's giving him his broadside, which is dangerous against the Lux, but I managed to, luckily, I guess, steal the kill there. Sorry, B2. Yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, so now things are looking a little better. We've managed to secure the hill, and the enemy tanks just north of the hill there are on pretty low hit points, most of them. And we can see there's an enemy TD there somewhere that hasn't been spotted, the Valentine. He kills one of our guys, and you know, it has been spotted. That worries me a lot because this is going to make what's coming up next a lot more risky, a lot riskier, I guess I should say. And look at that, Type 95, almost no hit points, high explosive loaded, over the top, bang. So given, including my kill on the Lux, that's 2 kills and 2 shots. And now the Covenanter from above, yep, bang, 3 kills and 3 shots. That's a Reaper medal. And now let's see if we can take out this Lee. Look at that, 183, penetrating high explosive round. Great damage, but not enough to take him out. Can I get the kill? Can I get the kill? No, he's around the corner, and one of my allies takes him out. So unfortunately, no, didn't get the kill on the Lee, but you know what? That's fine. We've definitely turned the tide of this battle now, and really there's just a TD and Artie and that Matilda, with very dangerous tank, of course, but he's way down in the riverbed there to the west. And other than threatening my teammates on the western side of the map, he's not going to be able to affect the battle. So there's the Valentine. I get a big high explosive round through his gun shield. Not able to kill him, though, so one of my teammates kills him. And there's the artillery. I get one shot in. No, don't manage to do a lot of damage. The second one misses. I'm going to try to splash him around the rock. You can do that with high explosive if there's an enemy hiding behind a building or a rock. If you land a high explosive round just next to where they are, you can sometimes do a bit of extra damage depending on the blast radius of the high explosive round in question. So cleanup time now. I'm going to head down. You notice I turn to the right there. I avoid that little spur of rock that was sticking up on the side of the hill there, because you can get hung up on that. You can get stuck there and spend the rest of your battle watching from the hillside. So coming down there very gingerly. Of course, I don't want to do any damage to myself either with the physics. And there's the Artie. So I'm trying to get in a shot on him. There he is. Okay, let's line it up, and boom, big shot, track him. All right, aim, aim, aim. Oh, no. That was almost fully aimed. Flew straight over his head. And yeah, no Top Gun for me, unfortunately. But, you know, pretty good game. Happy with that. Ace Tanker. Reaper, of course, for killing all those tanks in quick succession. Fighter, got the 5 kills. Bruiser, firing high explosive, of course, you're going to do a lot of damage. 939 damage overall and 886 base XP. So fired, it's 12 pens. All my shots that hit actually penetrated. So you can see the wide variation in high explosive damage there. Did 30, 40 in some cases, other cases 100 plus. So even if you penetrate with this gun, you're not going to be guaranteed to always do a lot of damage with the HE, but if you're in a low tier battle, you absolutely want to be firing those high explosive rounds. So that's the Type 95. Yeah, definitely an unlovable tank. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment, click like if you enjoyed the video, and please consider clicking subscribe. This is Sir Harry. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.